intricate etymology and historical context surrounding the term Moor. It explores how cultural theorists have attempted to unravel the complexities of its meaning, particularly in relation to representations of African Moors in antiquity. Through a meticulous examination of ancient texts and linguistic evolution, the author uncovers the origins of the term, tracing it back to the Greek and Latin roots associated with the region now known as Morocco and Algeria. Barthélemy, a prominent cultural theorist, connects the term Moor to the Greek word "morpos", which referred to the inhabitants of ancient Mauritania and also connoted blackness. He highlights the linguistic evolution of the term, noting its synonymous use with black in both Greek and Latin contexts. Additionally, Barthélemy discusses the confusion surrounding the identification of Moors as black, attributing it to historical accounts such as Medonville's travel. Snowden, in his scholarly analysis, further explores the historical development of the term, referencing ancient texts like Juvenal and Isidore. He elucidates how Mauritania derived its name from the color of its people, emphasizing the association between Moor and notions of blackness. Snowden also discusses the nuanced perceptions of skin pigmentation among ancient Greeks and Romans, highlighting their awareness of variations within African populations. The expulsion of Moors from Christian Spain marked a significant historical event, shaping perception of Africans as Moors, often depicted as black or tawny. During the 16th century, both secular and religious public festivals in Spain reenacted the Reconquest, portraying Moors as black. Particularly during Christmas celebrations in Tolosa, this portrayal suggests an interchangeability between the terms Moor and black in the cultural narrative of the time. Furthermore, the historical connotations of skin color, the varying gradations within different racial groups, highlights how descriptors like black, brown, dark brown, and light brown were used to categorize individuals' skin tones, similar to the way Europeans were described with a preponderance of adjectival terms. The term Moor is linked to a black origin, tracing back to the African presence in Greece from the 6th to the 4th centuries BCE. This connection is further underscored by the use of the term Ethiops by early Greek writers to refer to Kemites, indicating a perception of Africans as having black or burnt-faced complexions. It is instructive to also note the presence of African origin figures in Greek mythology, such as Athena, Memnon, Andromeda, Cepheus, and Perseus, who are recognized as having complexions varying from black to Ethiopian or Egyptian in origin. Founding fathers of Kemetology paint Kemites as mixed or white. Sir William Flinders Petrie, a 19th century Egyptologist, is credited with the initial assessment of an outside origin to ancient Egyptians, suggesting a mixed African-Libyan ancestry. He described the Egyptians as largely formed from Libyan immigrants, with the race being a mulatto of Libyan Negro mixture, based on his observations of skeletons at Meidum. Petrie's views influenced subsequent scholars, who also proposed theories of outside or mixed origins for the Kemites. Notably, Petrie associated each new introduction of ceramic design styles with the entry of a fresh civilization, possibly indicating the arrival of a new racial group. Wallace Bulge, keeper of Egyptian and Syrian antiquities at the British Museum, initially subscribed to the belief that Egyptians belonged to the Caucasian race. However, he later compared the Cushites to descendants of the biblical Ham, acknowledging similarities in bodily appearance and cultural practices between Cushites and Egyptians. Despite these comparisons, the passage highlights a perpetuation of historical misconception, particularly the notion of the Caucasian race playing a central role in Kemetic history. This idea, labeled as a historical hoax, has been criticized for attributing the achievements of African civilizations to light-skinned outsiders. As scholars like Wallace Burge progressed in their research and education, they made cultural comparisons between Kemetic civilization and other African cultures. Wallace Burge, for instance, noted comparable living customs between Kemetic and other African societies during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. James Henry Breasted further expanded on the discussion by proposing a composite origin for Nile Valley civilization, suggesting influences from both North Africa, Libya, peopled by fair-skinned Caucasians, and East Africa, peopled by groups like the Gala, Somali, and Bega. The turning tide, another view. Scholars are reinterpreting archaeological sites, iconography, and material conditions, distinguish reality from ideological constructs. Diet Rituals Inquiry challenges arbitrary distinctions between what is considered Kemite and what is Nubian, particularly at sites like Elephantine. He emphasizes the urgent need for a full publication of old excavation findings from regions like Shalal and Kubania to dispel unsatisfying categorizations like a group or Nakada, which have historically dissociated black African Nubians from the genesis of the cultures in their territory. Gathel's work emphasizes a reconceptualization of frontiers as zones of cultural interface and fluidity, challenging colonialist perspectives that viewed colonists as cultural intruders and natives as passive recipients. Instead, frontiers are seen as socially charged places where innovative cultural constructs are created and transformed, leading to the formation of integrated new entities through the modification, creation, and syncretization of emblematic elements between Egyptian and Nubian groups. Reconceptualizing cross-cultural influences, Kemet and Greece. Highly skilled Kempton artists utilize living human models to create enduring images that provide primary evidence for evaluating the specific ethnicities and nationalities encountered by the people of Kemet from the pre-dynastic to the pharaonic period. These artists depicted phenotypical features with meticulous detail, suggesting direct observation of the subject's characteristics. Diodorus Siculus, a historian who lived during the 1st century BCE, wrote about ancient Egypt when it had been colonized primarily by the Greeks under Alexander of Macedonia in 332 BCE. Despite colonization, Egypt maintained its reputation as a center of science, religion, and the arts. Diodorus's work highlights the journey to Egypt as a central theme in the biographies of several Greek philosophers and intellectuals. He listed prominent figures like Homer, Solon, and Plato as having visited or studied in Egypt. Diodorus also mentions two famous Greek sculptors, Telecles and Theathres, son of Oracus, who spent time with the Egyptians. He provides valuable information about their sculpting practices, which differed from Greek norms. The sculptors worked on the wooden statue of Pythian Apollo for the Samians, employing a method unfamiliar to Greeks but typical of Egyptians. This method involved determining proportions using a specific unit of measurement, resulting in a distinct symmetry in the Egyptian arts. During the 8th century BCE, Greeks served as mercenaries in the Egyptian state army and were involved in trade, primarily centered around the port of Naucratis. This period marked the beginning of significant cultural interaction between the two civilizations. The grid system for determining proportions in art evolved over successive epochs in Kemet. The Old Kingdom. It consisted of 18 squares based on the horizontal lines, which increased to 20 during the New Kingdom, Amarna period, and eventually to 21 in the 1st century BCE, as attested by Diodorus Siculus. Robbins discusses the use of the grid system during the Amarna period, noting the shift to 20 squares and confirming these through measurements on figures and tombs. She emphasizes that artists used established conventions to convey information about the world they wish to portray. Pliny the Elder credited the Athenian artist Apollodorus as the first to give his figures the appearance of reality, drawing from Egyptian sources. This suggests a transition of artistic knowledge from Egypt to Greece. Plato and other ancient Greek philosophers acknowledged the wisdom and knowledge of the Kemites. Solon, for instance, traveled to Kemet to learn about ancient Greek history from Kemite priests. Plato inherited manuscripts that described Kemet as a miraculous state and equated attempts at Greek state's reformation with the inflation of exile and death. Self-representation in Kemite art. The Kemites devised a grid system based on the concept of symmetry, represented perfectly by a circle in 2 dimensions and a sphere in 3 dimensions. This system, which incorporated the universal constant pi, evolved over different periods, from 18 squares in the Old Kingdom to 20 in the New Kingdom and 24 under Nubian rule. The use of this grid system was rooted in Kemite concepts of harmony and symmetry, reflecting their understanding of the universe as emanating from one source of energy. Artistic standards and conventions were meticulously planned and executed by Kemite artists. They considered factors such as the dimensions of tombs, the purpose of chambers, and the subject of paintings before initiating the creation of art. Lead draftsmen played a crucial role in overseeing the execution of artwork, ensuring precision and uniformity throughout. Kemite artists underwent rigorous and systematic training, demonstrating advanced knowledge of anatomy, motion, and portraiture. They received instructions and practical examples from royal patrons and were often supported by Kemite priests who served as chief craftsmen and tutors. The transmission of artistic knowledge often followed hereditary systems, with certain professions passed down from parents to eldest child. By the Middle Kingdom, artists like Itizan immortalized themselves through inscriptions in their tombs, highlighting their knowledge of traditional art methods and emphasizing the importance of education and lineage in artistic training. The other are seen by Kemites in literature. The hieroglyphic sign for highland and desert was the same in Kemet, with the mountainous red soil of the surrounding valley associating Western Asians with the deserts. Kemet viewed Western Asians as coming from the deserts, grouping them pictorially with desert beasts and denying them the blessings of fertility and uniformity. While Kemet did not deny settlement to Western Asiatic peoples, they restricted them like all foreigners to specific areas. Libyans were settled in the Western Desert, while Western Asians were settled in the Delta region and the Eastern region. The association of topographical descriptions with human characteristics reflected Kemet's philosophical view of the world. Western Asians were perceived as belligerent and semi-impoverished, traits that aligned with Kemet's description of them as desert inhabitants. The Amarna's letters illustrate the political consequences of Kemet's relations with Western Asiatic people, including royal intermarriage and assimilationist colonial policies that ultimately led to Asian revolts and plunder. Literary and artistic attestations further support Kemet's apprehension of ethnicity and nationality. Akhenaten's great hymn to the Aten acknowledges humanity's variety of ethnic identities and skin pigmentations, recognizing the diversity of languages, national characters, and physical appearances. Akhenaton's scientific understanding of the universe, centered on the atom as the source of all life, led to the acts of intolerance and destruction against competing theological beliefs. Despite inheriting traditions that attributed creation to sources antecedent to the sun, Akhenaton promoted himself as the mediator of God, challenging established theological norms. The color schemes used in Kemt's statuary and paintings reflected cultural perceptions. The reddish complexion attributed to the people of Kemet separated from indigenous African populations, who were characterized as uniformly black. The colors red, white, and black held symbolic meanings related to cultural values and perceptions of purity and foreignness. Conclusion: Epistemological lessons. The dominant view suggests that the color black in Kemp's iconography referred to the fertility of the black alluvial soil rather than to the people. However, the use of the red color to represent real people challenges this notion, possibly influenced by political hegemony and colonialism. Artistic depictions on the walls of tombs, such as those of Seti I and Ramses III, portray the four races of humankind, with Semites and Asians depicted as white-skinned and Nubians and Kemets depicted as having jet black skin. The accuracy of this representation has been debated, but evidence from various periods suggests a consistent portrayal of ethnicity. Scientific studies, including dental morphological studies and DNA tests on royal mummies, provide insight into the ethnicity of ancient Kemt's population. These studies indicate a greater affinity with population from North Africa and Western Asia, with genetic links to Niger-Congo speakers and origins in the Great Lakes region of East and Central Asia. While there are areas of contention regarding scientific methods and approaches, DNA science represents a significant advancement in identifying the ruling elites of Kemet throughout its history, confirming assertions of indigenous origins and migration from the south.